right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome on back to another episode of The Release Valve and Mental Warfare. I am your host, Sean Hanlon of The Release Valve, and I am joined again by my brother, my right hand, Kyle Spain of Mental Warfare. How are you, sir? Welcome back.
I am doing well. This is an integrated service. This is Mental Warfare and The Release Valve. You are our co-host. This is a mesh thing. Release Valve can't be what it is without the mental warfare that we endure on a daily basis. So it goes 100%. Hand in hand. It's peanut butter and jelly. But blessed to be here. I'm excited. This is threading the needle for me. This is what gives me the juice that I need to be the most productive I can be in life. And we are blessed again to have Chris on here for a part 2 back to back. Chris, how are you doing today, sir?
I am doing great, man. I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here. Humbled, grateful.
We are grateful, to be honest. We're grateful to have anybody that is interested in coming on, opening up, and not just looking to help themselves, but look to help others too in that process. And you 100% encompass exactly what it is that we are looking to accomplish with this podcast, man. You come on and be vulnerable and open up about your story, and it's not easy for anybody to open up about what it is that they have going on, especially when it comes to the personal aspects of life. And for you to come on and have live the life that you have lived up until now, and to have the type of story that you have, and to be able to come on and talk about it, man, it really does mean a lot to us, because so many people can benefit from knowing all of the things that go on out there in life, in the real world, that affect us every day in our interactions that we have with other people, right?
Yeah, and it's without hesitation too, without resistance, like you're open, and I feel like that comes with a sense of overcoming certain hurdles and obstacles, because when people are in the warfare that they're in, it's hard for them to talk about it, and it's easier to talk about once you're out of that situation and been able to heal from it, right? People don't like to talk about their situations while they're currently going through them. That's why you usually hear about testimonies after they've already overcome the hurdles that they've overcome. But still, at the same time, it's difficult for anybody to even talk about any of this, knowing that, not everyone knows this, but the release, and it's so cliche. I mean, we've been on this show, we talk about this every time, and this is the name of the show, the podcast, but everyone feels so much better after just getting something that off their chest, whatever they were feeling about, right? And so these things are extremely important, and you are an example of what people need to be doing, sharing, right, connecting, releasing, revealing, and healing.
Well, somebody much wiser than me was like, every time I share about my past, or every time he would share about his past, is that he would learn something about himself, or realize something in that thought process, in the process of being, I guess, vulnerable, as you stated, that an epiphany of sorts occurs, an epiphany of a catharsis, kind of,
right? Yeah,
and can release some of that unattainable, undefinable feelings. Because not all feelings can be expressed with words, right?
Right.
Yes.
I feel like that's probably the hardest part that people have when dealing with their feelings, is not feeling like they can express them, right?
Yeah. And I feel like there's a reason for that. You think about how many thoughts are cycled through our minds on a daily basis. 75,000 on average, right? A lot of them being within this. It's a lot, right? And when it comes to feelings, and events throughout the day, throughout the week, there's so many little things that can alter or be a contributing factor to our mood. That one thing that we may express, and we've kind of talked about this, Sean, before, you may be like upset about one thing, or you may have expressed that you were upset about this one thing, but it could have been an array of things that happened prior that led up to that one thing. Right. And there's so many intricate details that it's hard. It's like, well, how am I feeling? Well, this affected me, this affected me, this affected me, this affected me, right? How do I put that all into one word, or a couple of words rather? So I can imagine it being difficult for people to express themselves, trying to pinpoint what it is how they're feeling, because there's only so many words.
Right.
But I love how you said that, Chris, because as we've been doing this podcast and having some guests on here, there's been something that Sean and I have been able to take from somebody, and it's like you said, it was like it's a reflection onto our life. It was like, oh, well, if I did that, if I applied that to my life, it would make my life a little bit more easier. And I'm thinking about the yoga. What was her name, Sean? I'm sorry. Trisha. Please forgive me, Trisha. She talked about yoga and, her yoga practices and just like the release and the effectiveness, the production that comes from that. And right. I still haven't put it in practice, but it's things like that. It's like, well, man, if I did that to my life, I could be more at ease. I could use that as a type of release valve, right? So I loved how you said that, because that's important. That's basically what we're supposed to be doing, right? Because we're only one mind, right? We're so creative with the things that we can do, that we can all learn from each other, and that's what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be connecting so we can learn from each other, tactics, strategies on how to live a better life, right?
Yeah,
so
we're not alone.
Exactly. Tell them, Chris. That's what we've been trying to tell them. We need a witness.
Yeah.
We're not alone in this life.
Everybody thinks they're alone, and that their problems are, I used this phrase last time, terminally unique. And not in the sense that, your problems are legitimate. I'm not saying that they're not. But other people have been through something like that or that.
Oh, man.
And you don't have to feel like nobody understands, because if you're looking in the right place, you'll find somebody who does understand and will, help you and also call you on your BS.
Yes.
Right. That is one thing.
Who loves you.
Oh man. That's one of the major things that people they look at the quantity of their friends and not the quality of them, right? And they feel like, they have people that they've known their entire lives, or that because they're quote unquote popular and know a lot of people or something like that. Doesn't mean that you're getting the same quality from those relationships that you would with somebody that you really can be vulnerable with, right? And Vaca said it on the episode before, talking about, that's who I know who my real ones are the ones that I can have these type of conversations with and be vulnerable with, and learn about their vulnerabilities as well. Because again, a lot of times we get so caught up in what we have going on, we're not able to put ourselves in a position of being able to really see what somebody else has going on too, right? We're so caught up in like you said, nobody knows my problems and my issues, and it's I'm terminally unique in that way. I like that phrase. And it doesn't allow us, when somebody else does present what they have going on to us, we're not in a position to receive it. We're not in a position to really, really look at that person and take into consideration what they have going on. Because again, we're so caught up in what we have going on. So then you have that ugly cycle of like nobody's really putting themselves in positions to, like we said, like Barry said, to reveal so that way they can heal, right?
There were so many things on that front, relationship wise, and I want to start a series on relationships, because relationships are important. And really what we talked about, what are the bridge? What's the bridge, like you talked about, Sean? You just said you can my words are gibberish today. You could have known somebody for years on end and still not be as close as somebody else that you've only known for a few months to a year. And what's the difference in that process? It's the ability to be vulnerable. Right. And this is why we connect with other people so well, for connect with others that are going through similar things because of that exact factor. Is
Right.
being able to be vulnerable and understand. It's like, oh wow, you understand what I'm going through, and that's the immediate connection, right? But that's the forefront. That is the foundation of friendships and relationships in general. You know, I have friends now, like we talked about. We talk about circles, and your relationship can only be so deep if you're not being vulnerable, right?
Right.
If you're
Right.
not sharing your feelings and how things are affecting your life, or just talking about life and connecting, you know, all those shows and dating shows and Big Brother. That's why Big Brother, a lot of people in Big Brother, I'm not sure if you're familiar, Chris, with Big Brother, but it's a game show, and you're in a house for 3 months, right? And you're in a house full of people for 3 months, and there's no social media, there's no phones, no TVs, no music, there's no entertainment, there's no pen and paper. You can only do the only thing you can do is interact with other people, and within a 3 month span, and these people come out with relationships. They come out their relationships. I mean, of course, they can go both ways, right? You know,
Right.
being in the house 3 months with somebody that you don't vibe with can be, you know, have the opposite effect. But if you do vibe with somebody, those 3 months can feel like 3 years. And that's why you get those situations, those relationships was like, man, I feel like I've known you all my life and it's only been a couple of months, right? Because you were
Right.
able to share and be vulnerable with things that you can't be vulnerable with other people. And it's like Chris said, like if you look in the right places, you'll find somebody that's going through the same things that you're going through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to learn how to get out of myself and be a good friend.
Right.
You know, like
Yes.
I think people always think like I'm a good person, and most people are, you know. But how can I be a person that's actually helpful to another person?
Yes.
And it sounds simple, but it's not easy, you know.
Mm.
Like just paying attention. Like,
Yeah.
can I stop? Can I stop spinning my wheel and thinking whatever it is that's on my mind and just listen to what you are telling me?
Mm.
Yeah.
And it's not many people can do that. Like I can have a conversation with somebody, and I can tell after about 5 seconds when they're tuned out and they're already thinking of their grocery list, that
Yep.
conversation they had 5 minutes ago.
Right. You kind of see them
Um,
trailing off a little bit.
yeah, and that's okay. It's not a judgment, but for me, I had to learn how to do. I learned how to be present, and then relationships just started popping up, friendships, you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
Again, the
Yeah.
quality of them, and we've talked about this before. You know, it's funny. I just saw a video just recently. It was actually of Jim Carrey talking about something very similar, and talking about how he's nowhere really but here right now. You know, there's so many people that, you have people that deal with depression. They're usually in the past. You have people with anxiety. They're usually in the future, right? So he focuses on being right here, right now, and that's how he's able to give 100% of who he is in whatever it is that he's doing, even if it's just a conversation with somebody, or if it's on set and he's acting out a character or something like that. He's 100% right there in that moment as often as he can be, and that helps him get through, everything that he's doing in life. And I was, I've been a huge Jim Carrey fan for so many reasons my entire life, but that one, whenever he seriously talks about something, I listen, right? And that was one that really, really hit me, and especially hearing talking about depression and anxiety, and those are things that I've struggled with my entire life too, or my entire adult life, I should say,
Yeah.
and maybe longer, but I wasn't aware of it before then. But so hearing somebody talk about that and talk about the secrets, or the things that help them get through it, how especially when it's something like that, like, man, just be here. It, like you said, it sounds so simple, it sounds so easy, but it's not for a lot of people, and for myself at times too, it's really not. I find, and that's why I love what we do, because for whatever reason, I'm able to just block everything out and just zone right in. And I'm here and nowhere else. And I feel like that's probably why I'm able to come to a lot of the thought processes that I come to and able to talk about these type of things, is because I'm not weighing myself down from all the other things that I have going on.
This is a moment to reflect. This is a moment. These moments right here are an opportunity to unpack, right, everything, because like you said, we're either in the past or we're in the future. Rarely are we into the now. And
that's why they call it a present.
Yeah. Yes, I love that. That's Kung Fu Panda.
I was literally just watching it. That's why it's in my head.
I forget the entire saying. He said, "But the present is a gift." We'll have to bring up the saying. But even in Scripture,
the past is a history, the future is a mystery, and the now is a gift. That's why it's called present. Something like that.
Yeah, so
there we go.
Pretty close.
And
to
there's some scripture. Yeah,
I just watched it.
Yeah, there's some scripture though that backs that up though, with not worrying about tomorrow, because tomorrow will have its own issues, right? And having to focus on today, because that's where we're at, especially with the thought of knowing, and a lot of us take this thought for granted, and the fact that we're uncertain of tomorrow, right? A lot of us live like we're gonna have tomorrow. Even for myself, talking about it right now, right? Because that's so mind blowing how you said that, because it's a moment to reflect. And even for myself, that's taking that same concept for granted, life for granted. Like I could have before getting on our episode right now, I could have easily applied that thought or concept, and my mood would have been a lot better than it was before prior getting on here. Thinking about the future, thinking about the past. Well, I'm both. Like, I'm in the past and the future, and a lot of us
pulled in both directions. Yeah,
a lot of us are.
Right.
But that's heavy. Being able to be in the present and be grateful for what today has to offer. Religiously executing on the thought of tomorrow's not promised, and a majority of the world doesn't operate on that concept. If you talk about anxiety and what fear, what is anxiety? Oh man, I just watched Inside Out too. Like anxiety.
I haven't seen that one yet.
Fear of a perceived. I can't even. I'm gonna botch it.
I know when I know fear creeps in when I'm not trusting in my higher power. And I know when I am in a situation that I would normally find fearful, but I have no fear, that I am trusting in my higher power.
That is so heavy. That is so heavy, Chris. And usually Sundays, listen, we all have off days, people, and this is why we're on here. None of us are perfect, and we continue to struggle. I mean, mental warfare is a daily thing. The enemy is always on attack. 24/7, waiting for you to let your guard down, right? And usually Sundays are like my happy day. They're my fulfilling with yes, and this morning was a little bit quite the opposite of that. And before getting on here, I thought I was like, man, I literally told myself, I was like, I'm being ungrateful right now. I'm like, I'm being ungrateful. I need to go pray. And this was right before this, and now, and this is another example of how great God is, man. And I pray for encouragement, and here I am getting it. Having to pay attention to all the signs. Man, you guys are a blessing, and people out there in the world. This is exactly what Chris said. Having the faith in the higher power and consulting with God in these moments, so we can give you that relief. Because it's exactly what you said, man. I'm so mind blown by that. I'm so mind blown because I was just experiencing that, and what you said is exactly what I needed to do initially, and that's heavy. That is so heavy.
And I'm human. I falter, but I'm conscious of it when I'm faltering, and so
yes, and that's it.
Long.
But that's important though, right? Because if you're not, then you continue to go down that path, right? versus me exactly versus where I was, and I was like, I have to go pray right now, because I'm not feeling right. The enemy's attacking right now. My feelings aren't where they need to be. My emotions aren't where they need to be. And if you're not aware of that and you don't consult, then like you said, you go down that path, and then now you're affecting everybody around you. Sean, you were about to say something.
Yeah, no, I was, I think I just took a breath. I didn't, I was trying to control my breath. Because, no, I'm impressed, and I didn't even know you prior to this, but hearing your story on the last episode, the first episode that we did, and hearing how you talk about these type of things and where your mindset's at now, I'm just impressed, and I guess I wanted to ask, when did you turn that corner mentally, and emotionally or spiritually, whatever it is? When did you turn that corner and start looking at things differently? Because at the end of the last episode, and we'll touch base on the story that you were talking about, but even after that tragic incident, you still said that you had a victim mentality, a victim mindset that you had going on coming out from that. And usually when something major like that happens is when we have our kind of a epiphany in life, right? But that wasn't the case for you. So when did that start? When did you start to turn that corner?
It wasn't until about 7-8 years ago when I hit a real low in my life. My wife, we had been married about 4 years at the time, been together like 10. She was like, I don't know who you are anymore. I don't recognize this man. There's not the same man that I married.
Heavy words.
And that's, oof.
Yeah.
That hit
I can
me
imagine.
hard.
Yeah, I can imagine that hitting you hard. Yeah.
And I didn't recognize who I was, and for a while I didn't recognize who I was. I had just petered out and given up on all my goals and aspirations, and had become complacent and just given up all my resolve, and I'm just going to live this kind of life, which wasn't. I think we're all. I know I can't speak for anybody. I think I'm meant to help people, and I wasn't doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I was just being selfish and serving superficial. I had made things my God that wasn't God. I had my own selfish gains were my primary concern, and everybody else I would do just enough to where I felt like I got my wife off my back. I would do enough at work just to where I felt like I'm okay with what I do at my job.
God, yeah.
I was doing the bare minimum, and maybe even less than that. But at the same time, heavy. I thought, well, I deserve this. I deserve to be all about me.
Right. And a lot of us are selfish, Chris. I was cutting my son's hair today, and I love how this is God's work and how everything ties in. We're watching Lego Batman. Oh. Right?
So good.
Man, right? And, Batman's going through his thing. Lego Batman's going through his issues of being alone and feeling isolated. And at the very end of the day, human nature, how God designed us is to be connected with somebody, to share life with somebody. And, they talk about superheroes, right? And Sean, we talked about this with us, right? With this, every individual, right? And how we're supposed to be, how we are a superhero and a superhero to our own life. And the commissioner, she's like, you're not a superhero because you're selfish. She was like, you're only thinking about yourself. And, I think about that, and I was like, man, like, we're all supposed to be the superhero of our story. And in order to do that, we have to be selfless, right? And it's crazy because in order to be selfless, you really have to do the things for your growth so you can bless others, so you can help others. And that's ultimately what a superhero is becoming. It's not just becoming the superhero of your life, but it's being a hero to somebody else. It's about healing. I mean, what does Superman do? He saves people. Right. Like he saves people from danger, and that's obviously on a different end. But if you're translating that to how we're supposed to be living our life, and I told you this the other day, Sean. Oh, actually, I'm not sure if I did, but my son. Hopefully, I'm not going on a tangent. I'll be rambling sometimes. My son has a stomach issue, and I just felt like, just being in my head, I felt so guilty about his stomach issue. And I'm like, I'm so worried about my life and the things that are wrong in my life versus trying to be the best father I can be for my kids and everyone else around me. And I feel like if I'm not trying to be the best person that I can be, then I'm being selfish, right? I feel like if I'm in my feelings, I'm not helping others around me. Like as we talked about, if you can't love yourself, how are you going to love others? If you're not mentally healthy, how are you going to encourage others? How are you going to bring others up? How are you going to be the best person for you? So how are you going to be the best person for everyone else if you're not the best person for yourself? So
yeah, it's kind of strange. You almost need to be. It almost takes a certain level of selfishness to be selfless for others, right? You kind of need to work on yourself in order to be the best version that you could be to those around you. So exactly. It's just a matter of. And I don't mean to say it's just a matter of like I have it all figured out and here's the key, but I think it's you kind of need to be selfish, but do it in a right way, do it in a healthy way, in a
the right kind of selfish.
Exactly. Yes. We get caught up, like we were saying earlier, we get caught up in our feelings in what we have going on, and we get selfish in that regard as far as protecting those feelings, and instead of realizing that those feelings aren't good for you and you need to let them out. You need to unpack those things. You need to talk about that type of stuff in order to, like we say, reveal to heal. And then you can start becoming a better version of yourself for those around you. But if you're sitting there with all that stuff inside and not letting it out because you don't want to bother other people, that's being selfish in the wrong way.
Man, think about this, Leo. What would Superman be with all of that power if he didn't use it to help somebody? Would that be selfish or selfless? Right? I've got all this power, and where I'm going with this is this: we all have a superpower, right? We're all like we talked about, Sean. We're all a part of this Avenger team that we are coming together with our own unique abilities to go out and fight the enemy, right? But if we're not stepping into our purpose, then we're being selfish in that sense alone. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of like encompassing what we're talking about right now. If we're not stepping into the power that God gave us, then we're not able to help people in which God designed us to do, which is to help people. And that's kind of how this whole thing started, with Chris talking about how you were meant to help somebody, but you were moving in a fashion that was for yourself and nobody else. So trying to articulate my words, trying to define all of us and trying to put it all together. I'm not sure if I came across, if that came across clearly, but
yeah. No, I got it. Sometimes Sometimes you need to break it down in a way that is relatable to you to kind of show other people that you understand what they're saying, type of thing. And this is how I'm able to relate it to myself. And so in that same regard, you're revealing what you have going on and building that bridge so somebody, has a better understanding of you. But so was this something, to bring it back to you, Chris, was this something that that you were already kind of wrestling with a little bit before your wife said that? Or when she said that with you, was that like, getting hit by, out of left field and not knowing what was going on, but then being able to receive it well?
It was no surprise.
Yeah.
It was no surprise. I the handwriting was on the wall.
Yeah.
And when you can stop looking at yourself, when you can't look at yourself in the mirror because you don't like the person that's looking back at you.
Mm-hmm.
There's only a couple of ways out of that, and one of them isn't good.
Right.
So, and thank God I was too chicken to do that one. So, I needed to make it to where I was happy to look at, or I was at least could tolerate looking at myself. Start with that. Can I look at myself in the mirror and recognize that person? And so I had to get a lot of help.
What did in what form? What did help look like for you?
I had to go to rehab.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was just can you get the poison out of his body long enough to where he doesn't die from not having the poison anymore.
Right.
And B, start to clear up his brain enough to where he can actually start I can start reflecting and learning how to live life on life's terms. Is what, one of there's all these phrases and stuff. Living life on life's terms. Not on my terms. Not on so-and-so's terms, but on life's terms.
Right. Yeah, because life is going to happen no matter what, right? And it's we talked about this before, having our own kind of preconceived notion on how things are supposed to go, and then getting angry when they don't go that way, type of thing, as if you were owed it to go the way that you saw it going. And like you say, Kyle, how many people are on this earth? Everybody's expecting it to go their way. Like, come on now, we got to keep it real.
Perfect days. I'm mind blown by that same thought, because even for myself, I continue to live in that thought process. I continue to be affected by it, rather, right? And it's like, how many days out of the week do you have that are perfect? Right? How smooth do your days normally go on average? And we talked about this too, right, Sean? And it's like, when things do go smoothly, it's like, wow, that went smooth.
Today was actually a pretty good day. I don't know what was going on.
But then upset when the normalcy of life happens, when it's not smooth.
Right.
Wanting it to go perfect, knowing that it's not going to go perfect, but then excited when it does go smooth, but then upset when it doesn't. It's like it's like, okay,
what
where
are we
at?
here?
Like exactly.
Like, we're supposed to have a pretty mediocre day, and then end the day and be like, whew, that was exactly how I saw it going. Thank God.
Right, but maybe that's it, right?
I don't know. But no, again, trying to have that understanding, exactly what you said, Chris, of allowing life to be what it is and responding accordingly, as opposed to having your own thought of how it should go, and like you said, Kyle, getting mad when it doesn't go that way.
Mm-hmm. So Chris, what were some of the methods that you acquired to help you get to where you're at now?
I had to one of the first things I had to do, like I said, was just clear my mind,
sober up,
clear my body, and get to know me again. Like, who the hell am I?
Yeah.
Am I that, because we all have this idea of who we are.
Right.
And so I had to get to know myself. I had to learn to love myself. So I think for the longest time I didn't.
Right. And was that, how impactful was that to you in the relationship you have with your wife, learning how to love yourself? How did that change your relationship?
Well, at first, like, in the early going, she was still looking at me with that side eye, like,
I don't fully trust what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I don't know. This is. It sounds good. It sounds great, but this is not what I've seen lately. But she didn't. She didn't give up on me.
Yeah.
And she gave me enough of a bubble, a safety net, and I had to put in the work. I had to put in the work. I had to go back to school. I had to work 3 jobs. You know, at 37, 36 years old, starting from the bottom.
Yeah.
You know, I had to be humble in order to start from, you know, I had to, I was bar backing, which, and I was a bartender for years. So I was basically the bartender's like stalker boy. Mm-hmm. I was working at this place. It's like a brain, basically a tutor. I'm working at as a tutor, like 15, 20 hours a week, and I was substitute teaching. Like, you know, it's amazing when you feel like you have a purpose again.
Yeah.
And I have no excuses and I have no addictions. I mean, I'm still an addict, but I don't have any present desire for anything what I can accomplish. Like you said, I feel like I was a superhero going back to what like I was like, holy moly. And then when the first time I was a substitute teacher and I was helping kids at that tutoring thing, I'm like, this is where God wants me right now. And I had to find out, hey, God, sorry I cussed you out all those years. And
yeah.
Rebuild that relationship too, right?
Yeah. And I excuse me. I'm so glad you said that. And this is for people that are wavering on their belief in their faith, right? I find it fascinating, mind-blowing, how people have a problem with their belief in God, but don't have any belief in the opposition, right? A lot of people struggle with their belief in God, but they don't believe in the devil.
Like
right?
when
It's
things
almost
go
like
bad, it's not the devil,
it's
that
God's
was God
problem.
too. Like you brought that upon me, and it's like, why are you throwing that? Yeah.
Exactly. So for me, it's like when bad things happen, it's like people blame God for it instead of blaming the person that made it happen in the first place. You know, unless it was a moment for God that was putting you to test you, to build you up. But God's not going to put you in a situation that's going to harm you. All right, He only puts you in situations for growth. And so I find that mind blowing, because a lot of people do that. They blame God for the pain that's going on in their life when it's actually the enemy that inflicted the pain in the first place. And that's why the enemy is so good. Right. That's why he's so good.
He can trick you into believing that it was the good guy who's the
exactly, bad guy. Exactly. Framing God for his doing. Man, it's powerful. And as I feel like that's something, awareness that we have to come across, man. There's 2 sides of everything, right? And if we're not even talking about spirituality, we're talking about everything else. There's fast, there's slow, there's tall, there's small or short. You know, 2 sides of a paper, 2 sides of a coin. There's always 2 sides to something. Otherwise, that one side can't be, right? So there has to be 2 forces at hand on all levels, and we have to be aware of that. We have to be aware of that because the enemy is the master of distraction, master of destruction.
That's right. One of the things they say is,
yes,
I get a daily reprieve contingent on my spiritual condition. Now, these aren't my words. These are words that were written decades and decades ago by men much smarter and incorporating Christian and Taoist and Buddhist beliefs into the struggle of addiction. And it's phrases like that I was hanging on to, especially at the beginning. You know, am I spiritually fit in this moment?
Yeah.
And if I'm not, why is that? Where did it waver? And can I get back to it without losing my sobriety?
Your mental, it seems like your thought, the awareness that you had, it seems so constructive, right? And it's it's moments like those that allow you to have a choice or a decision in the path that you're going down. Because like we just talked about, without that awareness, then you're still going to continue to plummet, right? You're still going to go down that path. And those questions are necessary. Like how can I do this? Or how can this problem be resolved in the best way possible? Like how can this situation be approached in the best manner to get myself over this hurdle? And those are valid questions that we need to ask ourselves. Otherwise we stay stuck. Right? And so, I mean, that's Chris, you keep on mentioning, this is the second or third time mentioning, people much smarter than me. And I think that you're a very smart individual. I think that you should give yourself more credit for what you've accomplished, where you came from and where you're at now. I think that where your mentality is at now, you can move and help so many people with the thought process and mindset that you have now. And I think you're minimum. Yeah, I think that you're what is the word? Minimalizing or minimizing? Minimalizing.
Yeah, a friend of mine says I'll always find a way to undercut myself, and I'm working on that too. Like I still have, and I guess it's my attempt at humility, and I'm still learning what that is.
Yeah.
Humble, but it's also stepping in the power that God gave you. Right? You're go ahead. Go ahead, son.
Sorry, I was going to say, I understand where you're coming from, because when you've done wrong or bad things in your life, it's hard to look at yourself in the light of somebody that can do good, somebody that is good, right? Because you know where you were at during those dark times, during those negative times, the bad things that were said, that were done, all of the above, right? And so it's hard to look at yourself in a positive light because you've done those things. But in my opinion, you never really know, like you can never really be good unless you know what being bad is. Like you have to know what that other side is to really have a good understanding of who you are and where you're at, right?
It gives you the contrast. It gives you the contrast, and this is so heavy because for people to hit rock bottom, it gives them more gratitude than anybody else that hasn't. And we're talking about rich people versus poor people. And Sean, we've talked about this before. I've mentioned, a lot of people resent rich kids, children of rich parents, and they're not out of the woods either. They go through their own warfare, even though it's not finance, and maybe time spent with family, because that's when you're a child, money means nothing.
Right. It's your bandwidth.
What we talked about.
It's whatever you've experienced in your life. Just because you haven't experienced being broke doesn't mean you haven't experienced hardships. And that's what people look at. People with, the rich kids or whatever. Man, I look at those situations and it's like, that's what I want to achieve. I want to achieve giving my kids all the things that I didn't have when I was a kid. I want to achieve my kids not having those hardships and those struggles. But, and this is a point that I was going to make earlier, we wouldn't be who we are if we didn't have those struggles, if we didn't have those hardships, right? And, Chris, you wouldn't have the mindset that you have, and you wouldn't feel the way that you feel. You wouldn't have accomplished all the things that you have accomplished if you didn't hit that rock bottom, if you didn't go the other direction. And again, it says so much about who you are and your character to be able to go so far in the wrong direction and be able to turn back around and then go that much further in the right direction. And right. Because again, like I said, there's this quote that I love, and it's a little bit off topic, but it's right there with it. It's better to be a warrior in a garden than it is to be a gardener in a war.
Bruce Lee.
Yes.
Bruce Lee.
Man, I was hoping somebody was going to get that. I'm pretty sure it was Bruce Lee, right?
Yeah, and
So,
that's why um, and stuff like that. I listen to stuff like that. I do every little thing I can. I could probably do more, but I do more than I've ever done before in trying to keep this and this right.
Mm.
And by right, I mean helping, uh, learning, because I constantly want to keep learning. Um, I just finished reading The Outline of the History of the World by H.G. Wells, one of the nonfiction book. It's like 950 pages long.
Nice.
And he talks about the history of the Earth from its creation, the different, the rock formations when it didn't have oxygen in it, all the way up until in the 1940s, 1950s.
Mm.
He covers all the bases that a person can cover. And it gets me, first of all, I'm a history nerd, but it gets me to learn more about us. Because we haven't changed all that much
No, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we
in
haven't.
the 20,000, 50,000, however many thousand years we've been us. We haven't changed
Yeah.
that much. So I look for patterns.
Mm.
I look for patterns in the behavior, and at the end, you think of all the cynicism and all the war and all that, but I think we're ultimately good. It's just the fear that creates all the hurt.
man, it's you said we've been the same for 25,000, 50,000 years, which is why the Bible is even more mind-blowing, because God talks about life as it is right now as if it was back then. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Everything that you can learn from the Bible can be applied to modern day life,
Oh, yeah.
which means that since day one, the enemy's been doing the same things over and over and over again with success, apparently.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Right.
yeah. That's why I mean, it's crazy. I love / hate that a lot of those the old things that you could read, like Marcus Aurelius's Meditations and stuff like that, and have it still apply today. Like that's. I take inspiration from those things, but it's also kind of depressing to think about that, we're still struggling with all the same things. Like you said, somebody that had zero technology, right? As far as like how we view technology today. And when we're broken down, we're still struggling with the same things. Like nobody's been able to figure this out to a point that we've been able as a mass to learn from it. And I think
Man.
it's because we're so caught up in ourselves and not having these type of conversations and not expressing how we feel more often and what we have going on to gain those better understandings of all of those that are around us.
Man, I was listening to Myron Golden, who is a spiritual genius for me. I gravitate towards him, but he talks about Adam and Eve in the garden and how life itself, how it started with the devil getting him to focus on lack, right?
The one
He had
thing
all
they
the
didn't
trees,
have, right?
the one thing that they didn't have, and that's what we do. And that's what powers, our fears, anxieties, and insecurities, right? To focus on lack. And some of it's true, some of it's facts. As you're a kid, love is the prominent factor that we need. We need to feel safe. We need to feel secure. We need to feel loved, right? And I understand even more so in depth as to why people need to work on their relationships when they have kids, because what kids see and absorb directly affect your adulthood. I mean, Chris, we talked about on the last episode of everything that you've gone through. It translated, right? And you had so much to overcome because of those things and the traumatic events that you went through. And so it's the fact that we continue to focus on lack as to why a lot of us are unhappy. And even for me today, just worried about things that I shouldn't be worried about. You're talking about, like you said, Chris, giving the faith to the higher up, trusting in him. Because, I mean, it's interesting to me how God works, because he could reveal himself at any time. But it's like, it's like life is a game. It's crazy how life is a game. Because it's like I'm going all over the place. Oh my goodness, my thoughts are going. Let's reel it back. Let's go back to you, Chris.
Well, I was gonna say that all of that pain, that for whatever reason I went through or somebody went through, whatever, heartache, hardship, shortcomings.
Yeah.
Now, and the pain I put myself through during my own struggles with myself.
Yeah.
How can I use that for something positive?
That is heavy. Like
how now I can help the next person because I can see it in their eyes. Maybe not exactly what I'm going through, but they're going through. I have enough to know they're going through something.
Yeah.
You can recognize it.
I recognize it quick.
Yeah.
And it's a blessing, and sometimes it's a curse, and it's like, all right, God, you're putting my ass to work.
Right. Yeah. You feel that weight all of a sudden when you come across those people, right?
Yeah. And then not knowing knowing that you can't help everyone.
That's probably the tough part.
And
that's
keeping
probably
yourself reeled in to put your energy towards where you can make the most difference, right? And not spread yourself so thin.
Past, especially as a teacher. Man, that's hard.
That is heavy.
And that was one of the things that I wanted to talk about on the last episode was all of it, right? The mental the warfare of being a teacher, and like how is that dynamic for you? You have X amount of kids and X amount of backgrounds, X amount of personalities. All of them aren't going to be to your liking, right? There are going to be some hard heads. There are going to be some kids that are difficult to deal with. Versus
vice versa. There's going to be ones that they don't like him either, right? How do you approach those situations?
Yeah. So how is that?
Well, thank God I got a huge ego, and I think everybody loves me.
So that doesn't weigh too much on you.
So it serves a purpose in that sense, and genuinely, most of my kids do love me. Most of my students, but that doesn't mean that they're easy,
right?
To reach, to connect with,
yeah,
to make a difference, or at least at the end of the day, feel like I'm making a difference. It's one step forward and 3 steps back.
Yeah, right. You're helping mold and shape the future. And we're here talking about the things that we went through during our lives. You're a part of these kids' lives and their development. And when they get older, they could be talking about the things that they learned from you, either directly or indirectly.
And I can see the pain in their eyes. I'm falling behind. And then sometimes they just tell you, like, I'm stupid. I'm dumb. I'm like, no, you're not. Just because you don't, you just try to hype them up any way you can and then show them the victories.
Right.
Yeah.
Celebrate those.
Celebrate them so much and hype them up. Because
they're probably not getting that at home, right?
Yeah. And that's another battle, and I got to remember that, like I said, I can only do so much.
Right.
And not let it deter or embitter me. I just got to keep fighting. You got to keep fighting even though you know you're going to lose. You got to keep playing even though you know you're going to lose.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like in life insurance, the numbers game, like collecting a certain amount of no's just to get to that yes, and it's a hit. It's a hit to the heart because that's where our purpose is, right? Like we get the most fulfillment out of helping somebody, putting a smile on somebody's face, right? And if we can't do that, you almost like self-reflection. You're looking internally. It was like, well, what could I have done better to try to have reached him, to reach him more? What could I have done differently, to get the message across? So you almost, not speaking for you, but if I would put myself in your position, almost feeling like you failed them, in a certain sense, because you weren't able to do the things that you wanted to do to help change the course of their life. And it's tough too, right? Because they're only like the podcast, right? We're only on here for an hour or so, and you're only in the classroom with them for X amount of time, but then they go back home where they spend majority of their time receiving majority of that energy, right? That loss of love, abandonment, abuse.
That's why it's so important
to
try to tip that scale as much as you can, right?
Yeah, because I can recognize it. Because I had a rough childhood.
Right.
You know, I had things happen to me physically, emotionally that I can see might be happening to my kids. Mm-hmm. And I can't really talk to them directly about anything, but I can tell them I'm here, and I can show them over time with my consistency that there's love here. This is what love looks like.
Right.
This is what you deserve. And before we can even get to the learning aspect, they got to feel safe.
Yeah.
If they don't feel safe, if they don't know where the next meal is coming, if they don't know, like, they're not gonna, they ain't gonna get, know what a noun or a verb. Who cares what a noun and a verb is?
Right. Who cares what that is? We're in survival mode right now.
Right.
And Chris, that was like light bulb. That's why the cycle continues. This is exactly why the cycle continues. I mean, you think about it. These kids have parents, right? The problem is within the house. It's within the home. Okay, but maybe as they were children, the same type of energy was being stimulated. That's what they knew, right? Because the cycle continues.
Yeah.
Like unless we break the cycle, it's a generational curse, right? Because if we're going through our childhood experiencing those emotions, it's just going to lead into the future, right? And if we don't find God or a solution to resolve the issue, we're just going to be passing that same thing on to our kids, right?
The generational trauma that we talked about. But man,
I said generational
safety.
trauma.
That is such a huge thing that you said, because that is what
safety.
What will follow us over, into our adulthood is feeling safe. And we talk about being vulnerable and putting ourselves in positions to be able to talk to people. That's what that is. Am I safe?
Exactly.
Are my feelings and my emotions and my thoughts, are they safe in your hands?
Yes, exactly.
What is going to happen when I present to you what I have going on in the inside? And, as a kid, it's all about safety, man. Am I safe enough to even learn, like you said, to even be able to hear the things that you were saying? Because like you said, Colin, I'm in survival mode. And if I am constantly in survival mode, you don't have any time, any energy to soak in any of the important things that are going on around you, because you're so focused on just getting past the situation that you're in and into another and whatever, right?
What you said, it was, you literally, the initial reason as to why I even mentioned the generational trauma was because of the safe word. And you helped remind me, Sean, when you said it, because that's really the generational trauma. That's really why the cycle continues and why we're no different 50,000 years ago. That's exactly why we're not going to be able to continue to break the curse or to break the cycle as much. I mean, we can try, and like you said, we're going to only be able to reach so many people. But if we're not in a safe environment, there's no chance.
No,
there's no chance. And this world is an unsafe environment because of society, the mechanisms of society and how things operate. The devil is crafty.
Well, what is society, right? That's a group of individuals that, as a group, they're making these decisions, and it's based off of, a lot of times it's based off of fear, based off of control and stuff like that, from fear. And anger, yeah, exactly.
Resentment.
But, again, I think having we keep on saying it, and I'm going to keep on saying it. Having these conversations, opening up with one another, allowing ourselves to be vulnerable and showing others that they can be vulnerable with us humanizes us. And because again, if you don't have these, there's a lot of room for questioning, and what comes up with questioning is coming up with your own answers, and you don't know what anybody else has gone through. So if you're coming up with an answer based off of your life experiences, and you're answering somebody else's situation, you're wrong. You're gonna be wrong, and a lot of people don't handle being wrong very well. And so you get a constant, over time, you're getting a lot of people that then are afraid to be wrong, or get in turn are afraid to put themselves in other, open themselves up.
Hidden voices, yeah.
All that type of stuff. But again, if I'm opening up and talking about this, there is no room for question. You know exactly how I feel. You know where I'm coming from. You know where I'm coming from. And that will help you eliminate your questions on who you're dealing with. And then you can you have a better chance of being yourself and opening up about what you have going on. Like Barry said, building that bridge first, crossing that bridge, and then walking the person back with you. That's how I feel that we can get major change overall throughout the world. I know it sounds silly talking about, like world peace and stuff like that, but honestly, that's what it is. We don't know what they have going on over there, so I'm going to come up with my own mindset of what's going on over there. But
why not?
Exactly.
Why not, right? The world is in chaos right now, right? We talk about opposition, right? Why couldn't it be in peace? I mean, it's hard with the enemy at work, but it's in chaos right now. And so, I mean, there's a possibility that it could with the rate, maybe not. But it's about, trying to, recruit, as many people to our side to what we're talking about, versus, being out there in the world and trying to figure it out. And it's so crazy because we're all dealing with something. It's so mind blowing. We're all dealing with something, and we're all supposed to be connected in a different way. And yet we're all isolated, we're segregated, you know what I mean? And
we do it to ourselves. We do it to others. We do it to ourselves. So, again, to bring it back around to what you said, Chris, getting ourselves to a point of being able to look in the mirror, being honest with what we see when we look in the mirror, and taking the necessary steps to better what we see in the mirror. And if we're all doing that, instead of just, succumbing to the weight of all of the things that we have going on and not taking those necessary steps to better ourselves, I mean, that's a recipe for disaster. But if we're able to actually be honest with what we see in the mirror, do something about it, how could that not better the situation?
And when I see someone, that, whatever you want to call it, that person just losing their marbles in a public setting, or cutting you off, or just angry, I can take a step back and be like, there's something that's hurting them.
Yeah.
There's something that's hurting them enough to where they have to act this. They feel like it's okay to act this way.
Yeah.
And justified in their own beliefs.
Right.
And
that's a fresh reminder.
And you know that because that's what you used to do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So, but again, you were able to get yourself to look in the mirror, be honest with what you saw there, make some necessary changes that you needed, and then you're able to look at those situations as they arise and be able to take that step back. But if you weren't able to do all that, if you didn't go through the things that you went through that got you to where you're at now, you would be that guy losing his shit in the public setting that other people are looking at and judging,
or trying, man, I love that you said that, or trying to fight fire with fire. You can't, negative plus a negative times a negative is going to give you a negative, right? Two wrongs will make a right. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's
right.
Man, that's empowering, because Sean, we've talked about this before, even like when you had your episode of somebody cutting you off, and that's a skill set, Chris. Like, you have to learn that. That's a behavior learned to be able, because what happens is I still have a problem with people talking to me a certain way disrespectfully, even though at this point in my life I know that they're going through something. But it's the insecurities and the hard wiring that I've been programmed with that kind of just like, what? You know what I'm saying? What you say to me? You know what I mean? And
That's
it's
the
like,
ego.
It's exactly. It's those insecurities that we already feel about ourselves.
Right.
That kind of come out. And you overcame that, and which was why you were able to put yourself you were able to sit back and be like, man, like that. I haven't been able to do that for a while. I love that you said that, Chris. That's
hard. It's hard.
It is.
You get cut off 8 times in a day on the road, and I had one of my mentor of mine, older guy. He's like, what if they're in a hurry and maybe their mom just got in a wreck or something? And you know what? And that's hyperbole, right? But more than likely, that's not the case. But if I can even think that for 2 seconds,
right,
it'll cool off whatever I'm feeling in that reaction. I'm not reacting anymore. I'm responding.
Reactive.
Right.
Yes.
Right. I love that. Removing your own emotions from the situation.
Yeah. It's not because then that goes back to my ego. Who does this guy think he is or she thinks she is to cut me?
Right, cut me off. Yeah, exactly.
No.
And they're like, no. No, I don't know
Crazy.
who you are.
Exactly.
Crazy story. And in Texas, Sean, it's different from California.
I
you got
only imagine.
Dude,
how wild
with
it is in
gun
Texas.
Laws, people are strapped up out here.
Everybody's toting,
man,
right?
Talking about that rush. Wow, Chris. Wow. I'm in a rush to the Y, right? Go and train some clients. I'm in a rush. And I end up cutting somebody off. Not on purpose, right?
Right.
Exact situation, right? Dude follows me all the way to the Y.
Oh, wow.
It was miles back, and he's like swerving to stay behind me too, and I'm like, this dude is really following me. He followed me all the way to the Y, and so what I had to do is I ended up getting out of my car and I stare at him. But this was, look, oh my goodness, I could have been stupid about the situation too. Like I was like starting to approach the car, right, not knowing if he could have had something, right. Mm-hmm. But that was that was that ego, the insecurities, that hard wiring that I had. Is like, well, dude, what do you like? What do you want to do? Like, you're following me. Like, what's good? Yeah. So I had to. I immediately changed that, and I popped my trunk open, right? And so I went into my trunk like I was about to get something out. Right, like I had something in there, but I didn't. Right, I wasn't scared.
Grabs the gym bag all aggressively and shit.
But
come on, water bottle, baby.
Yeah. Spray it out at the car.
Right. But at that moment, it was like, well, dude's a kook for following me all the way to the Y. He literally stopped where he was going to follow me to the Y, and that's how crazy the situation was.
Right.
But he ended up just taking. He was like, I got your plates, man. I got your plates, and. After that, he didn't realize. I mean, I get out the car. I'm 6'6". I'm a black dude, 6'6". You kind of think a little. You think twice.
You're gonna think twice.
But I was thinking that.
Yeah,
you're gonna think twice, man. I don't care who you are, what kind of training you have. If a big black dude gets out of the car, it's gonna make you think twice. Not too many people.
And I got this me mug. I got this me mug on my face too, and so. I think that's kind of what helped my cause, because I feel like if I was in a different situation, he probably would have done it. It could have turned out a little bit differently.
If my little scrawny white ass got out of the car, he probably would have got out of the car.
But yeah, no, that's heavy, and that's I'm going to take that with me into today and hopefully into the next days, hoping that it lasts long. I need to put that on the wall.
It's good for my serenity.
Yeah, absolutely.
My serenity.
Right.
Nobody gets to take it away from me.
Yes.
I don't get to
reach.
I don't give it out. I keep my serenity.
Yes.
Sometimes I got to say the serenity prayer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can we get some of that? I love that too, because you're protecting your peace and you're not letting anybody to destroy that.
Because then you're giving that person power over you.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, bro, you can have it. Cut me off. Like you got it.
You win. I used to, man, when I was younger, I because I'm not a big intimidating black dude, I had a chip on my shoulder because I felt like people looked at me as if they could beat me up or whatever simply because I was a skinny white dude. So I was constantly in a lot of little situations looking to elevate it to that next level to show them that they couldn't, they didn't have that one above me. Yeah, super insecure, right? And I got to a point of, nowadays, man, everybody trains in some sort of martial art or, jiu-jitsu, kickboxing. Nowadays, everybody's into MMA and stuff like that. You have no idea. Pretty much anybody's probably going to kick my ass because I'm not doing anything. So, but more than anything, it was a realization that, I'm not going to win. When I was younger, I had a disillusion that, I could probably beat this big-ass dude's ass because he's not expecting me to be able to be so scrappy. Man, odds are I was going to lose 9 out of 10 fights, right? But, you couldn't tell me that. Now that I'm older, man, I'm okay with losing 10 out of 10 fights. Go ahead. You win. Like I said before, Kyle, with that lady, I got better things to do with my life. I got babies I got to get home to. I got a wife that I need to be there for. You know what I mean? My picture is a lot bigger than that little situation that used to piss me off, whatever I found myself in.
That's heavy. Also being mindful of the current state of emotion that you're in when you got caught off too is important. How do you handle yourself, Chris, in those type of situations? I'm not sure how zen you are now, but do you get in situations to where you're emotionally off and get into a situation, not per se, could it be any other situation to where you get cut off?
I do, but only
how do you handle those situations?
I can restart and I think this, I don't always believe it, but I think this, and I'll say it out loud. At any point in time, I can restart the day.
I love that. I absolutely love that because we even talk about that too, Sean, in our little tap-ins. Sean and I, we connect with each other on a daily basis through voice message. But it's like, how you start your day. Reversing the day. That's what we talked about. Reversing the day. And if you're able to that is so key. Write that down for all the people that are listening. Build the skill of learning how to restart your day. Because that's
the only bad days I've had are when recently I've lost. I've had loss. Whenever there's loss, dude, because those feelings, I have nothing to mask them with. So when those feelings come on, I just got to sit there and take it.
Yeah.
And I got to understand that it's okay. But work, being out in public,
things that are in your control.
Barely fight. Imagine that, I get my stuff together, and my wife's actually a pretty awesome, cool chick, and pretty chill. She's not a nagger. She's not. I do my part, and I keep my word. I think I said that the last thing. I do what I say I'm going to do. Because
that's heavy.
And no follow through.
But I think that's important, right? Because a lot of us we say the same things to ourselves. Let's take out of the rest of the people out of the equation. Let's just focus on ourselves. Like I'm about to start on Monday. I'm about to start next week, or I'm about to do this. I'm about to cut my hair. Something stupid, right? And then we don't do it. At the very end of the day, how do we feel about ourselves after not doing it? Exactly. Right. And that's kind of what sets off my mood, Sean. That's what I told you, right? If I'm not threading the needle and being productive, I'm not in the best mood, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, all right, I'm about to go to the gym at 5:00 in the morning, okay? And I don't do it. Now I feel bad. Now I feel
right. And you don't hang on to, in the heat of those moments, you'll come up with whatever reason or excuse or justification to not do whatever it is, right? But you don't hang on to those at the end of the day. At the end of the day, it's not like, well, I had this going on, I was tired, or, I didn't feel good, whatever. At the end of the day, it's just that beating yourself up, like you said, Chris, that kicking yourself like, man, I should have just did it. That regret that, so again, I think it's so important to almost, I mean, it may sound a little bit too intense, but to look at more situations that you're putting your word to as a life or death situation. And you know, I could lose somebody if I don't keep my word. I know that's extreme, but sometimes we need to prioritize things in that light in order to actually prioritize them and get those type of things done. Build that muscle of getting things done as opposed to building the muscle of bailing out.
Yeah.
That's across.
Occasionally there's a reason. Occasionally there's a reason. But if 9 times out of 10 I did what I'm supposed to, that one time, like, you know what? I can be kind to myself.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not going to beat yourself up because
I'm not going to beat myself up because the other 9, 10 times.
Yeah. The majority.
I did do it.
You feel that it's a feeling.
Yeah.
It's a feeling, and it's for anything. You know, in your heart, you don't have to tell anybody what you did or what you were trying to do. You know, in your heart will tell you if you've done enough. You know, your heart will tell you like I put in the work versus not. You can lie to yourself, you can lie to other people, but your heart's going to keep it real. Your heart is going to tell the truth. And that's the true meaning of doing it when nobody's watching, right? Because God is going to put it on your heart. You're going to know. And at that point, that's when that feeling of grace comes in. He's like, well, I can be kind to myself today because I know in my heart that I did what I needed to do.
Right.
And if not, you're feeling bad about yourself. Those feelings don't go away. Like you said, Sean, you can have all the excuses in the world, but at the end of the day, you're still upset about not doing the work that you said you were going to do.
Yep.
And you can't get that time back.
Oh my goodness, man! But that kind of circles back to what you said, Sean, about the life and death situation, right? And I was listening to something before we get off. I was listening to some YouTube video, and the question was asked, like, how many people raise their hand would change your habits in your life if you were told that you were going to die in a week? Like, how many people would live differently, right?
Everybody. Yeah, exactly. Some people are going to shoot up. I'll shoot up real quick on that one. Because I don't even like half of the things that I have going on, that how I go about it, right? I want to better those type of things. So if somebody said that, I already know that it would kick me, and you know what I mean?
But mark that. That's an important statement that you just made. That's heavy. Like, how many people would quit their job? How many people would get out of the situation that they're in if they knew that their life was going to end in a week and tomorrow is uncertain, right? Whoo, that's heavy. I need to keep that at the forefront. You know, living life like there's no tomorrow, because there isn't. I mean, we don't know that.
I'm blessed enough to be where I'm supposed to be, I think.
I love that mindset.
Yeah.
I really think that's, and I don't know, a year from now it might be different, but right now, today, and going into this school year, which starts pretty soon, I am where I'm supposed to be. And with my family, I'm where I'm supposed to be. Like, I don't know how much I would change or could change or would care to change. I'm good. And how people say, yeah, I'm good. Oh man, I'm good.
Nah, you know how you said that in the tone and where the emphasis was at. There's a difference between I'm good to I'm good. Like that. You could hear it. You could hear it, man. I love that. And you've hit us with a few lines this episode that really made my hair stand on end and made me think. So again, Chris, I want to thank you so much for coming on here and talking with us about this stuff. Because again, Kyle and I sit here, and like he said, we have our conversations and we go back and forth throughout the day. And we really feel like it really comes and amplifies when we get on here. But when we can get somebody else on here to get that energy flowing and bouncing back off of them too and getting their perspective, especially somebody that has lived a damn life, man, it really means so much to us. And I know that those that are listening are going to be able to take away a lot from it too. So, man, thank you so much. I just really do appreciate it.
Absolutely.
You're not alone. You're not alone.
And that's what I was going to say too. And that's what I was going to say too. Because you're a witness. You're a witness to what we're trying to accomplish and what we believe in. Because I don't know, I'm a broken record coming on here talking about how we're not alone with what we go through, and a lot of us are going through the same things, and it almost sounds like yada yada yada. But it's like you hearing it from somebody else. It's like a child and their parent, right? They don't want to listen to you, but when they hear the same thing from somebody else, it's like, oh, it must be true, right? Wow. So it's that same thing, bro. So I really appreciate that, and even for me, just like we talked about, just the connecting. You said you had to start all over at 37, and I'm 37, Sean's 38, and we're in the beginning stages of all of this, right? And so that's giving us hope, like 3, inspiring.
4, 5 years, 7 years from now, you keep on that path. You don't doubt yourself, even when there's plenty of reasons that you can give or the world can give you to doubt yourself. Mm-hmm. You just do you.
Yeah, that's God's way, though. That's heavy.
In spite of,
and that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Yeah, and that's what I mean by don't minimize your brain and where your wisdom, Chris, because you've impacted me. You've impacted Sean, and you've got a whole classroom of kids that you've impacted as well. And sometimes like maybe you did help them to a certain capacity. I mean, maybe there was a thought, phrase, or comment, quote that stuck with them that may not help them now, but could help them later. I always quote Steve Fisher, right? And that was something that I didn't really care about. The whole like you never stay the same. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. Okay, I didn't care about that quote at the time. It didn't matter to me at that moment. But now looking back at it, I can reflect back and look.
Put that pin in your head, though.
Exactly. So maybe you need to give yourself a little bit more grace with what you've accomplished, because your story is powerful, and we talk about this all the time. Everyone has a story. Give yourself some grace. You've been through some things.
And keep fighting that good fight, man.
Yes, sir. You're doing. I want to be ultimately good with where I'm at. And I can't say that I can say that. You know what I mean? I'm not sure if I can say that with the tone that you delivered it in. So I want to be there. I want to be at peace. That's like, not only are you at peace, that you're protecting your peace. You've built up a certain amount of skills to deflect other people's negative energy. And I haven't mastered that yet, And so you should be proud of yourself.
Well, when you see me hitting the bag at the gym, it's because some of that seeped in.
But that's healthy. That's healthy
that
release
valve,
right?
though. Hitting the release valve from the mental warfares. That's it.
That's production.
That. Yes, sir. We should. I want to get you back on to talk about that too, because I'm a combat sports enthusiast myself. So I would love to talk about the correlation. We just had our boy, shout out to Eric, talking about the correlation between mental and physical health and being able to release a lot of that built up pressure, either on somebody or a bag, but in that type of productive way. So I would love to get you back on to talk about that sometime.
All right, brother, you got it.
My man, I appreciate it. So thank you again for coming on. Kyle, keeping it going, keeping it growing. I love what we have going on. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you next time.